Vallabham Girivardhari Shodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabham Girivardhari Shodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabham Girivardhari Shodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajakacharya Astar Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 6, The Downfall of Saubhari Muni, Text 47. Yad Garhastyam Tu Samviksha Sapta Dvipavati Patihi Vismita Stambam Ajahat Sarvabhauma Shriyanvita Yadgarhastyam tu samvikshya Sapta dvipavati patihi Vismita stambam ajahat Sarvabhauma Shriyanvitam Yadgarhastyam tu samvikshya Sapta dvipa vitipatihi Vismita stambam ajahat Sarvabhauma Shriyanvitam Yadgarhastyam tu samvikshya Sapta dvipa vitipati Vismita stambam ajahat Sarvabhauma Shriyanvitam Yadgarhastyam tu samviksha Sarvasitravati Smitam stambam ajahat Sarvabhauma Shriyanvitam Yadgarhastyam tu samviksha Sarvabhauma Shriyanvitam Yadgarhastyam tu samviksha Adipati Sarvabhauma Shriyanvitam Yadgarhastyam tu samviksha Vaishnavis, Yadgarhastyam tu samviksha Adipati Smitam stambam ajahat Sarvabhauma Shriyanvitam Yad he whose he whose Garhastyam family life, householder life. Tu but samviksha observing sapta dvipa vati patihi Mandata, who was the king of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands. Vismitaha was struck with wonder. Stambam, pride due to a prestigious position. Ajahat, he gave up. Sarvabhauma, the emperor of the entire world. Shriya Anvitam, blessed with all kinds of opulence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Mandata, the king of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, was struck with wonder when he saw the household opulence of Saubari Muni. Thus, he gave up his false prestige in his position as emperor of the world. Please repeat. Mandata, the king of the entire world, consisting of 7 islands, was struck with wonder when he saw the household opulence of Saubari Muni. Thus he gave up his false prestige in his position as emperor of the world. Purport. Everyone is proud of his own position, but here was an astounding experience in which the emperor of the entire world felt himself defeated in all details of material happiness by the opulence of Saubari Muni. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in his purport, Srila Prabhupada says, everyone is proud of his own position. So this phenomenon of pride is there in the world, and it's something that we find discussed in a variety of religious traditions, including our own. And this pride is a dual-edged kind of thing. It can either be positive or negative. And it can either be a vice or a virtue. And in its negative sense, as a vice, pride means having an inflated conception of one's own self-worth. And Srila Prabhupada often mentioned pride comes before a fall. This is something that comes out of the Greek philosophy. They had a concept of hubris. And that means the pride that comes before a fall, this inflated conception of the self-worth, of one's power, of one's intellect, of one's beauty, of one's reputation or wealth. One can become overly proud of these things and then be brought down. So King Mandata is in a sense being, he was in a sense proud of his position, but now he's feeling himself defeated by the opulence of Saubari Muni. In the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Damba, or pride, is listed as one of the demoniac qualities. Lord Krishna explains that the demoniac person becomes proud. I am so strong, I am so powerful, I have defeated all my enemies, I've accumulated so much wealth, and I'm going to accumulate more. And in this way, they prepare their own way. They prepare their way to hell because they forget the real purpose of life. But there can be a positive side to pride, which means having a sense of satisfaction about one's real position. I mean, Srila Prabhupada mentioned several times that a devotee can take rightful pride in his position as a servant of Krishna. And for example, on June 30th, 1975, in Honolulu, Hawaii, he said, "If one is proud after becoming a pure servant of Lord Krishna, that is very good. That damba, that pride is very glorious. I am a servant of Krishna. That is very, very nice." And on another occasion, here in Los Angeles, in a Bhagavad Gita class in December of 1968, Srila Prabhupada was being questioned by a devotee named Jaya Gopal, who was saying, if we're out on the street, we're distributing books, we're collecting money, and we begin to feel or think, I'm very good at this. Srila Prabhupada said, yes, you're a very good collector for Krishna. And Jai Gopal was saying, but if we, and then Prabhupada interrupted and said, yes, you should be proud, you should feel proud. I am working for Krishna very nicely. We don't reject anything, even this pride. Yes. So there is a sense in which one can be rightfully proud. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada would explain his own activities. The normal etiquette is that a devotee shouldn't advertise his own activities. It might be considered a kind of pride. I mean, normally the devotee is supposed to be humble. Trinada pisa nichena, Torora pisa hishnuna, amanina amanidena, kirtaniya sadahari. A devotee should be feeling lower than the grass in the street, more tolerant than a tree, not wanting respect for himself, offering all respect to others. And in that state of mind, one can constantly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. But sometimes Srila Prabhupada would say, he said, this is not pride, I'm just saying this for your instruction, that somehow or other, I've been able to spread Krishna consciousness around the world. And why is that? Because I follow the order of my spiritual master. So he said, this is not pride that I'm saying this, but it's for our instruction. So, in a sense, there can be a rightful sense of pride, but the key is to realize that, to take pride in the sense that somehow or other, by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, I've become an instrument of Krishna's will, and giving all credit not to oneself, but to one's spiritual master and the Lord who has empowered him. One can take some rightful satisfaction in being situated as a devotee, engaged in Lord Krishna's service, and doing it nicely. So, but it is a double-edged sword, and one can go to the opposite extreme and become a victim of what Srila Prabhupada often called false pride. So this King Mandata, he's feeling very much in awe of the opulence of Saubhari Muni. And in the previous verse, I'll just read it again, just so we can remind ourselves of the kind of opulence Saubhari Muni was displaying. It says, because Saubhari Muni was expert in chanting mantras perfectly, his severe austerities resulted in an opulent home with garments, ornaments, properly dressed and decorated maidservants and manservants, and varieties of parks with clear water lakes and the gardens fragrant with varieties of flowers, birds chirped and bees hummed, surrounded by professional singers. Saubhari Muni's home was amply provided with valuable beds, seats, ornaments, and arrangements for bathing, and there were varieties of sandalwood creams, flower garlands, and palatable dishes. Thus, surrounded by opulent paraphernalia, the Muni engaged in family affairs with his numerous wives. Of course, we're going to see in the coming verses that he becomes very dissatisfied with that position of material opulence and enjoyment, because he's feeling it's distracting him from the actual purpose of human life. And even Mandata Maharaj, the king, although he's got similar, but it appears a lesser degree of opulence, we often see that these great kings, if they're properly situated on the spiritual path at a certain stage of life, they're able to renounce that and give it up, which means they're not actually attached to it. So another interesting thing I see about Saubhari Muni is that to get his opulence, normally, say a person who's got some wealth, and they want an opulent house, built according to their own specifications. Well, they have to hire an architect, all kinds of contractors, and they have to engage in all kinds of laborious activities in order to get their opulent house and stock it with all these gardens and paraphernalia. They have to go through a great deal of effort to do that. Saubhari Muni was just chanting some mantras, and it immediately manifested. It's kind of reminiscent of what Kardama Muni did. He was the husband of Devahuti, and he wanted to take her on an expedition around the universe to see all the opulences of the various planetary systems of the universe. So he manifested similarly by his yogic power a huge flying city, which is described in a similar way as being full of gardens and lakes and different kinds of animals and birds. And there was one interesting detail in that story, that in addition to the living birds and swans that were present in his big flying palace, his Vimana, there were artificial, mechanical birds and swans that were so real that the living swans and birds would go up to them thinking they were other birds like themselves. So it's kind of interesting what these yogis like Kardama Muni were able to manifest, these very realistic mechanical birds. And it kind of reminds me of an interesting development in modern military technology. They now have these drones that they can use to fly and spy on people, and even sometimes they're weaponized so that they can kill people. They hover over some area and kill people. But an ordinary drone, it kind of looks a bit out of place. So that, if you saw, one of these drones kind of hovering over you and you were kind of a terrorist or something, you might decide to try to shoot it down or something before it can do any damage to you. So what the military has done now is they've made drones that look like birds. They're mechanical. I read an article in a newspaper about this, that the Army has developed these bird-like, mechanical, robotic creatures that look just like birds. And the newspaper said they were so real that when they're flying in the sky, that hawks and eagles and things like that try to attack them, thinking they're other birds. So it kind of reminded me of that description in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Kardama Muni had manifested this huge flying city in the sky that had, in addition to real birds, artificial mechanical birds that were so real that the other birds would go up to them. So, in the Sanskrit, in the verse today, it says, Yad garhastyam to samviksha. So garhastyam means, the householder stage of life. So it says the king was very impressed upon seeing the standard of household life that the sage Sabari Muni was manifesting. Of course, we learn in the Vedic culture there are different stages of life. There first comes celibate student life, brahmacharya. Then it's possible for someone to go directly from brahmachari life, celibate student life, to sannyas, the renounced stage of life, or just remain in the brahmachari ashram for an entire life. But normally, a person after some years of celibate student life may enter the householder ashram, the grihastha ashram, where there is some allowance for possessions and opulence to a certain extent. But eventually, according to the system of varna and ashrama, One may enter vanaprastha, the retired phase of life, and then go perhaps to sannyas, the renounced order. There was, on one occasion, Srila Prabhupada was commenting on this. Because he was commenting on the fact that somebody might be thinking, okay, I'm in householder life, I've got all these responsibilities, I've got to maintain so many personalities and an establishment, and then they may think, okay, when I leave householder life, it's going to be like a vacation. Everything's going to be simple. I won't have to do anything. I won't have to work so hard. But, Srila Prabhupada said in a Chaitanya Charitamrita class he gave on July 16, 1976, if one renounces family life, one should not then say, okay, I'm free from the responsibility of family life. Now I can just take prasad and sleep. Srila Prabhupada said, no, you must become 100 times more active than in family life. And he, gave the example of his own life. He said, this is not pride that I'm saying this, but, when I retired, I started this whole Hare Krishna movement, which required a great deal of effort. If you read about Srila Prabhupada's life and his different biographies, he was very active during his householder life, maintaining his householder establishment and also trying to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. But when he retired, he became 100 times more active. So, but still, although he had a tremendous amount of opulence that Krishna gave him, he used it all in Krishna's service. So that's the main point. Now, an ordinary person who, say through his activities, somehow accumulated hundreds of millions of dollars might think, okay, now it's time for me to start enjoying life a little bit. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna warns about this. Bhoga Aishvarya Prasaktanam Taya Paritachetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Samadana Vidhiyate. She says, Bhoga, material sense enjoyment, Aishvarya, opulence, Prasaktanam, those who are attached to such things. Vyavasayatmika Buddhir Samadana Vidhiyate. They don't develop the firm determination to practice devotional service and enter into the ultimate stage of samadhi, complete absorption. They become distracted by these things. So we don't want to do that. And Srila Prabhupada often warned his leading disciples against becoming too attracted to and too much influenced by materialistic people who are very opulent. We can see there are so many opulent personalities in the world, wealthy people, people who are very intelligent in some ways, people who are very famous. And we can become distracted by them and think that we have to conform to what they want. And it leads to compromises in Krishna consciousness. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada was often stressing in his conversations with his leading disciples on morning walks and things, he was telling about these rascal scientists, these rascal politicians, these rascal millionaires, and, just to ensure that they wouldn't become deluded by material opulence and wealth and prestige and reputation, and think we have to make Krishna consciousness such that it will be not challenging to these people. No, so I think I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Archita Prabhu.
Thank you for a very nice class, Prabhu. Initially, it would seem puzzling that this king of the emperor of the whole world would be dismayed by the opulence displayed by the Muni. But I think you answered it in your towards the end of the class, that it's not just that he had the opulence, because the king, I'm sure, had equal palaces and servants and stuff like that, but it's the way it was manifested. The Kshatriyas usually have to go out and conquer, they'd have armies, and they have to control and collect tax and all that to make similar dwellings. But the Muni, he just chanted mantras and it happened. And we have other cases like Vishwamitra being a little envious of Vashishta. He was a Kshatriya and he had armies, but Vashishta was just a Brahmana who was able to defeat him. So then he decided he wanted to become a Brahmana also. So there are other cases of the Kshatriyas being attracted to stepping up to a higher level because of the fact that the sages, the Munis, the yogis could do things that they couldn't do.
Oh, okay. Oh, there was one more point I was going to mention. It was something I brought up in a question I asked the other day in class, like whether it would be, because we're, in this 9th canto, we're getting a lot of information about different kings and different dynasties. This king had this son, who had this son, who had this son. And I've just looked over again what's coming, as we go through this 9th canto. And right now, in this part, we're learning about kings of the solar dynasty, the Surya Vamsha. And then, starting in the 14th chapter of this canto, we're going to be hearing about kings from the lunar dynasty, the Chandra Vamsa, in which Krishna appears. Like Lord Ramachandra appears in the Surya Vamsa, the line of kings coming from the sun god. So that's going to be coming up in this 9th canto. But starting from the 14th chapter, there's another line of kings. First there's Brahma, and then he has different sons that take birth directly from him, not by the agency of any female personality. And one of them is Atri. And one of the sons of Atri is Soma, the moon god. And then from Soma come different personalities, he has sons who have sons. And eventually, in that line, you come to King Yayati, and then you come to Yadu, the Yadu dynasty, and then to King Shurashena, who was the father of Vasudeva, and then you come to Krishna. So the end of all these dynastic lists is going to be Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So finally, after 9 cantos, we get to Krishna directly at the very end of the 9th canto. And then we go to the 10th canto, which is all about Krishna's pastimes, which is what we're really waiting to hear. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.